All right, it's noon. We'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us, everyone. My name is Jasper with Score Main, here to present on logos from the ground up, defining your brand identity on a small business budget. Every business needs a logo, whether you're B2B or B2C, or in general. It represents your business. It's a visual standpoint from where people can, get to know you. Um, a little bit of logistics here. Thank you. I want to thank our sponsor today, the Maine Technology Institute, a valued partner of us here at SCORE. If you could please stay muted until questions arise. If there's one that's really topical to a slide, feel free to use the raise hand function, and I'll be able to call on you to come off and mute or queue it up in the chat. I've got my eyes on that too, and I can address them there. Otherwise, we will have a Q&A section at the end to address questions. If you're not familiar with us here at SCORE, if this is your first time joining one of our workshops, we're a nonprofit partner of the Small Business Administration. We help clients from all stages of the business cycle, from pre-start to exit. We offer one-on-one mentoring as well as free workshops like this. Um, Again, if you have any questions, feel free to queue them up in the chat. Otherwise, we'll get started. Again, I'm Jasper. I'm the client services manager here at SCORE's Maine district, as well as a freelance illustrator and graphic designer with a degree from the Savannah College of Art and Design. Great school, great time there. I do want to start off today with a quick poll. Where are you in your logo journey? Have you started one? Do you have one you're not happy with? Or are you looking for refinements on one that you do like? We'll address a little bit of each part of those in today's workshop. So if you could go ahead and sound off in the chat, it'll help me cater some of the slides later. Rodrigo's looking for refinements. Cool. Thanks for sharing. Elvia has not started. And same with Gabriella, and Jim's looking for refinements as well. Well, we're looks like we got a pretty wide spread here today, and like I said, we'll be addressing those as we go along. And this workshop is geared towards teaching business owners to start get these on a small business budget, either by doing it yourself or contracting it out. So we'll touch on those as well. So a logo is made up of different parts. There's three distinct parts to a logo, since it is the mark of the identity of your company. Just like your personal signature identifies you on checks, credit card slips, and legal documents, your logo is the way to the outside world knows that something belongs to and is involved with your business. Those three parts of a logo are the word mark, the icon, and the tagline. What are those three things? Glad you asked, though. That invisible voice behind me. Anyway, those three parts will run down here. An icon can be shorthand for your business name, like Apple, or a more abstract expression of the essence of your business, like the Nike swoosh. However, if you're just starting off, if you're not already, a Fortune 500 company, it's not, you should incorporate an icon, but don't make it just your only part of your logo. It's important, I would say, at this point to include a word mark, the second part. Your business, as much as I would hope it would be, eventually, your business can't be recognizable by just your icon yet. So a memorable word mark will be an important element of your logo. And a tagline, the bottom part, such as McDonald's, I'm loving it, or Dell, the power to do more, can be a little nebulous, feel good statement about what your business is setting out to do. And they're often reinvented over time. So don't feel too attached to whatever tagline you come up with. Or if you don't want one to start with, that's fine too. And, you know, getting into it, your logo is your one stamp that gets put on everything. It establishes your identity both internally and externally. So you need to make sure it'll work in a wide variety of places. Here we've used Chobani, which do just use a word mark for their logo, but with a nice identifiable font that looks clear and crisp across a wide variety of materials. Excuse me. Things like advertising, signage, uniforms, company vehicles, even. This is something that is going to be seen in a wide variety of places and is important to make sure it works in those places. Now we'll get into it. When do you need a logo? We like to say as soon as possible, but the name of your business is more important to start with than the logo itself. Um, some things to consider. Is this logo appropriate for your industry? You don't want to have like pink bunny when you're building a boat, it just doesn't really speak to the industry that you're within. Is it different enough from your direct competition? Take a look around you. If you're, say, a bakery in Biddeford, take a look at your, neighbors' logos and make sure you're not too close to, your neighbor. That being said, there's no new ideas under the sun. So if you're a bakery that does croissants and your neighbor does muffins, it's still both showing baked goods. So it speaks to what industry you're in. Is your logo trademarked by someone else? That's a thing that we have another workshop on, patents and trademarks. Very briefly, there is a way to search the U.S. Trademark Office on, I believe, the U.S. Trade, USTO, I believe, is the office. Again, there's us here at SCORE have a great workshop on that. I can include in the follow up to today's message. But if you have the same logo as someone else, that could be grounds for legal problems down the road, and nobody wants that. And finally, can you get a good domain name? My name, for example, Jasper Erickson, if I go, Jasper Erickson does graphic design is a bit wordy. Where if I'm trying to make a new website for advertising my graphic design products and services, I would say jedesign.com, great way to shorten it. And again, when do I need a logo? As soon as possible, but not before you understand your business's value proposition and the identity of your business. We have a great little checklist here as far as the questions you should take into mind when thinking about your logo. And a quick plug here if you're not already working with a SCORE mentor, these are some questions that a mentor could help you with if you're not familiar with answering these on your own. Where we do it all the time, we're happy to help. Um, you know, things that touch on the topics on the last slide as well. What do you do and what makes you different? Again, there's going to be competitors in your industry, so you want to stand out. Who are your customers? Because your logo is not just for you, it's the way your customers will identify you. What do you value and what is your personality? You should have, you know, your logo will reflect who you are, but also who your customer is again. And you should design your logo for them and try to keep your personal style a little separate, but a touch of it's always great to have. Um, you should have your logo as soon as possible again, but not before you research your competition. As we touched on before, what are others doing in your industry? And can you stand out while still being a part of the crowd? So we have a few examples here of a few different services. We have a boxing gym on the left, all kind of a blocky, kind of retro and classic fonts, establishing, I would say, the fitness aspect there. A painting company, incorporating good, spread of colors while still being very legible and not too stylized to, I would say, touches on their professionality. Some tanning studios with a fun kind of glow and warm colors to speak to tanning. And again, bakeries. We do have four different cupcake places, but they all have their own little touches, like small cakes on the top left with their word mark in an outline or some good stylized fonts as well can make you stand out. And before we get any further, any questions so far? Well, again, feel free to put them in the chat or use the raise hand function, and I'll keep going. So an important part here is who will design my logo. Um, you know, we would say if you can afford it, the best would be to hire a professional branding agency who will really understand what your value proposition is to make you something beautiful and custom. They'll take lots of special attention and it'll have the potential to be iconic, but it'll cost you. Again, this is if you can afford it. Um, I don't put yourself in debt just to make a good logo because you can refine your logo as time goes on. Your logo is not permanent. Um, Next best, a freelance graphic designer such as myself, either local or from an online service like Upwork and Fiverr, two great services that allow you to search the whole world of freelance workers. They'll do a solid job for probably a few $100 to get something really worthwhile. But you won't get the same level of personal service like a local branding agency would. But you'll still make sure they'll make sure that your logo will be laid out and in all the right formats that you would need for the wide variety of uses your logo will have. Going down the list further, um, crowdsourcing them. There's a great site, a couple sites called 99 Designs and Design Crowd, which allow you to kind of pitch your logo idea and um, people will submit their versions and you can essentially choose from there which one you want to go with. You may not end up with the ability to get revisions, but it'll be a little more affordable than hiring a direct graphic designer. Next up, we have logo generator websites. These will be very affordable and we'll be able to get you the right file formats, but they're much less customizable. And you may end up with a logo that might be really similar to someone in your neighborhood. It's a great place to start that you can then build off of. But again, by using stock stuff like Squarespace's built-in one, Canvas, those are materials that other people have access to. So other people with a business similar to yours might make a similar logo. If unless you're a graphic designer like me, starting your business, doing it yourself might be a bit tough, but if you think you have the chops, it's worth it because it's going to only cost you your time. So you might, still get something you're really happy with, or it's also, again, a great place to start off. It's a great stepping stone to get started with. And I would only recommend it if you have access to the proper tools to do it with, such as Adobe Illustrator, my preferred tool, um, and you feel confident in it. Lastly, I believe AI is probably the worst thing you could use for your logo. Here at Score, we use AI for a wide variety of things. It's great to help refine your business plan, help you find your value proposition, and more. But AI generated logos just are cheap, and your customers will know that you used an AI logo. It doesn't, it, and simply by the nature of AI, we'll touch on a little bit later, but really quick, can't trademark an AI image because AI makes images based off of other images. So you won't have anything original that you can have the ability to trademark under your business. And otherwise, your buddy who will do it for a six pack, again, unless they're a professional, I wouldn't recommend utilizing your friend to do it for free or really really cheap. Get someone who it's their job if you're going to hire someone. As I said, we're going to touch on a little bit. Say, can I use AI for my logo? Yes, but actually no. Again, there's no trademark protection because AI data mines existing images and creations by AI are not considered human original works. So you're not allowed to trademark it. There's also the problem in that it's really hard to, image generators are getting there, they're still getting better, but it's still pretty hard to get exactly what you want as far as text and editing those logos. You'll still even run into the jibbled up letters, fake letters, things that aren't legible. You'll also not have access to vector files, and a vector file we'll touch on later, but it's really hard to use an AI logo at scale. And lastly, it might be hard to really get into some of the more symbolism behind your logo with an AI, as unless you are really good at writing those prompts, the AI is going to take it literally and just spit something out at you rather than creating something memorable and unique. Now, if we're ready to get started, we can get started designing a logo. The first step is concepting. And even if you've hired a designer, it's important to be involved in this process. Um, think about memorable logos that may apply in your business. Again, if you've done a little bit of market research, looking at where those logos have come from. That is a great way to get an idea of what's iconic in your industry. Um, try, just doodling it out. You don't have to use AI for this. I think, getting your heart on the page is a great way to really make your logo stand for what your business stands for. And pen and paper, it's the original way we got images out there in the first place. Another great point is to possibly find some, little hidden meaning, like in FedEx and Zippo's logos, for example. FedEx iconically with the arrow in the EX, showing that it gets it to places, or the I in Zippo being a flame, to represent them being a lighter company. And I would also say, well, you can do those. Don't get too literal. Don't get too cliche with it, because it could just end up being a little cheesy. And again, these are things too you can bring to the designer you're working with. Um, think about what you want and bring it to them. If you use them correctly, your logo is going to be the most important element your company has to establish your brand recognition. So it's important to be thoughtful on this and to take your time with it. And again, continue iterating on it. Well, it's important to get it right. It might take a couple tries, and that's okay. Just make sure to remember that it's okay to take multiple tries to get this right. So, starting off here, once we have an idea for a logo, we should always start in black and white. By starting in black and white, it's simple, and you can design it to use any to be used in the wide variety of spaces because it's easy to have it, visualize what is going to read well and what's not going to read well in the black and white format. Um, by using to keep this in mind, in black and white format, avoid using photography such as in the example image here. It's really hard to scale a photo. Using text effects, same there. Drop shadows, glows are a bit hard to scale as well. And making it too complicated, like that star behind the logo on the left there, just makes it hard to read. Where on the bottom, if you shrunk that down or blew it up, it'd be easy to read what that says. Fonts, the tagline and wordmark of your logo are a font. And whether it's custom by a designer, which may cost money, or the hundreds of fonts available across the internet, the font is really what's going to stand out, because it's what a customer would read. Um, there's a fine balance between using a default font and a crazy font, though. So make sure your font's still legible while still having a bit of personality. It's again a fine line. And if you use a font that isn't already built in to, say, Adobe or in the Adobe Creative Suite, if that's what you're using, you may have to pay a commercial license for that. It could be anywhere between $10 and $100, depending on the designer of the font. It's something to keep in mind. Some great resources, like I just said, the Adobe Creative Suite has hundreds of fonts available. If you're subscribed to Adobe, in a wide variety of styles, fun, serious, such as, down in display there, the Pinewood font, I would say, is a pretty iconic one. You see a lot of those kind of fake logs that making up the letters, where a serif font will speak a little bit more to being serious, traditional, and clean. It's each font has a character, has a vibe, and it's something to keep in mind when you're designing your wordmark and your tagline. Again, those vibes, a serif font like Times New Roman, reads certain things such as like traditional, reliable, comforting, due to its classiness. A sans serif, however, such as Arial or as I'm using here, Lexend, can be stable, clean, and modern, crisp. A script font may speak to, elegance or creativity, depending on the type of script you use. Display fonts can be fun, friendly, and unique. Display, it's a wide variety of fonts. Display is probably the biggest category there because of the emotions that it will convey. And modern fonts kind of, I would say, fall within sans serif usually, but can have serifs. Either way, um, again, keep it in mind when designing your logo. Here's some great examples of famous logos that use the four types of fonts. My, personal favorites. I love the Lego font. I'm a big Lego fan myself, and their classic curvy logo with that's very legible but has some great color play in it is a great example. The Coca-Cola company with their, semi-cursive classic but, timeless font. Sans serif, usually tech companies or banks like to use it. Facebook, Microsoft, Google, pretty clean. Serif fonts speak to kind of a legacy, like Volvo and Sony, two old, companies within their, respective businesses. So again, the font will play into the vibe of your logo, but keep it in key consideration when you're choosing these fonts. Things like Papyrus, Comic Sans. I've received a contract recently written in Comic Sans, and that made me laugh pretty hard because I was about to give them money and it was written in Comic Sans. So it kind of made me reconsider, uh, you know, signing with them. It was really interesting to see. So there's certain, comical, memed fonts, as one might say. Impact, speaking of memes, lots of memes written in that font. So if you want your logo to be taken seriously, keep, play around with it, but don't turn your logo into a punchline. And, uh, make sure they're not used in a wide variety, too many places. Lastly, once you've gotten your logo pretty legible in the black and white format, then chosen the font you like, now it's time to start playing with colors and color theory. And just like fonts, colors are for logos are best left to one and two. That's something excuse me, I forgot to mention earlier. Try to keep your amount of fonts to maybe two at most. Maybe a serif and then a script, maybe like a signature, because too many fonts will just read too busy. And same with colors here. Try to maybe pick at most two colors that really represent your business, maybe three, to keep legibility on point. You want your logo to always be legible. Again, that's one of the biggest takeaways I'd say. If you don't take anything away from this other than one thing, you want your logo to be legible, and having too many colors, too many fonts will play into it not being legible. And so, from the Roy G. Biv spectrum here, green usually speaks to nature, calming, good luck, something like John Deere, you're outside, mowing your lawn or working on the farm, or Spotify, a fun music streaming service, where red is bright, passionate, bold, a lot of big companies, CNN, Coca-Cola, red means power. um, Purple, royalty, you know, color really, just like everything else, does play into it. So keep in mind the feelings of color and the vibe you're going for with your logo. And certain industries have a color that speak to them as well. Again, agriculture, green, retail, because of making their mark on the industry, red. Um, Accounting, entertainment, real estate, blue. Blue's, very common color, um, but it does have something to say about. We do have a question in the chat. Gail Cross, if one uses a bolded font, might that count as a second font mixed? Um, I would say it depends. If it's really significantly more bold than the rest of the text, I would consider that two fonts personally. Otherwise, I think that's a case by case basis. If it's too big, again, it might, but I would say feel it out, get some feedback on it, share it with people and see what they think if a bold version of the same font comes across too busy. Your customers also have a color kind of associated with them. Back purple's one of my personal favorite colors and has a wide spread there of modernity, luxury, and femininity. I think the royalty aspect of it speaks to a wide variety of markets, where red being loud, playful, and bright and empowering speaks to it as well. Your customers will see these colors and say, "Hey, if this bakery is using maroon and gold, maybe it's a bit out of my scale pay scale, you know. You want to be approachable with your colors and have them speak to what customers you want to bring in. So let's take a quick look at a logo that might have gone wrong here. We have a radio station, I believe, from not in Maine here, with a wide variety of things going on. Um, if anyone would like to name some of the things I've mentioned that might have gone wrong with it, feel free to do so in the chat. Just take it in, take a look at, what might have gone wrong here. And I'll get back to you in just a minute if you want to put it in the chat. Otherwise, we can keep moving. Yeah, got some sharing text effects and gradients. Yep, having too many text effects makes it pretty hard to go scale it. Um, can't see the font detail in black and white exactly. So once this is transferred to black and white, almost all of this is going to go away. So you'd lose a lot of detail and a lot of time and effort by doing all this by going too far with it. Um, and it's misaligned. Yeah, I didn't even that honestly, I missed that myself. It's not centered. So excuse me for a second. Um, yeah, and the photo of the microphone as well, like we mentioned, not having the photos, it's just really hard in order to use this in multiple places by having a photo. Great catches, everyone. All right. So once you have your logo set up and ready to go, we need to take a look at if you actually are ready to launch it. Even if you think you've got it right, we should check a last couple of boxes. So the first thing, does it scale? By using that more graphic black and white representation that you may have then picked some colors for, does it scale to use from a business card to the side of a semi truck if you're operating that large? As you can see on top, the one with the text effects, photos, and more just doesn't read as well that large, where it might read pretty well on a business card or a letterhead, where the scalable logo with the crisp vectored, text icon with, few colors that speak to your business scale much more cleanly. Uh, Again, it needs to be readable in small and large sizes, be able to be placed on top of different backgrounds as well. You're not always going to be working with a white background. You should make sure that it's usable on a dark background, black, darker colors. And by having a simple black and white version, you can invert it to be white text on a black background, for example. And again, it's going to be used everywhere again. So you needs to be usable in all the places you're going to use it. So as mentioned, does it work on a variety of backgrounds? Again, by cleaning it up, having only a few colors, if one color makes it usable in many more places, as you see with the left-hand side with the dark background, the drop shadow just doesn't work great, and it's hard. Sometimes you miss things like certain transparent spots as well as on top of an actual image. I would say even harder to read that text on top of an image. So unless it's really vital that you have this whimsical, puffy logo, um, keep at least try and keep a crisp version on hand for usage such as this. And so when you are making merchandise, if you're a business that's going to have maybe uniforms or selling shirts for your business, it should be usable in a screen printing or embroidery format. And to do so, pretty much can't use those gradients like in our green banana logo at all. It just is not reproducible in the screen printing and embroidery formats. And if it is, it's really tough. It's going to cost you a lot of money to get certain effects like that in merchandise for your company. You can work with a reputable screen printer. They might also have a direct-to-garment printer, which is a whole can of worms that we're not going to touch on today. But for ease of access, for ease of use, um, for on merchandise, just don't do it. Just make sure it's clean and usable. And so I've mentioned a few times in here before, a vector file is important for your logo because it's scalable. Once you have everything where you want it to be, you got to make sure you have these file formats ready. And the your designer will have this for you if you're working with one. Your printers and merchandise producers will want these files. And so here's a little blurb on those files. A raster file such as a JPEG or a PNG is made out of pixels, the little squares on your screen. If you blow it up too far past where the image starts to expand, it might get grainy and not be what you want it to be. And that can even happen both on screens and in a print format. And you have to consider as well things like JPEGs can't be transparent. I almost always just work in PNG to get around that anyway myself. But keep it in mind if you're wanting your icon as a raster or a PNG image, to make sure if you need transparency to have it in the right file format. Where a vector, such as Adobe Illustrator files or a SVG file, which you can export from those or have your designer export for you. Um, it's made out of essentially equations. It's made out of math where you can scale it forever because of the way that the computer handles a vector. Because it's code, because it's math, you can have it as big or as small as you want, as long as it's still legible when it's small. If you're blowing it up, it's probably going to be legible if it's on the side of a building. And so if you are printing, you can use raster files, on flyer, on your shirts, even if they are a high enough resolution. So I try to keep almost everything at 300 DPI. DPI is the pixels per inch of your file, where you can also send them the vector file because it is scalable and they'll be able to work with that to print anywhere. However, a vector file is not usable in every place. You can't post a vector to Instagram, for example. You have to export it as an image first. We do have a question in the chat from Rodrigo. How would you go about balancing a script font and the color it has? Because back in the green banana example, we'll go back for a second here to touch on it. The fresh picked is a bit illegible. That's a good point. I did inherit this presentation, but I think that is a good point that even our example is a bit rough to read. Um, I would, play around with the script fonts, find one that is a little more legible, because not everyone's going to be able to read this. So it's really just playing around with it. Otherwise, making it a bold font, bold color rather than the softer, finer color might also help there. But anyway, as we continue here, if you are going to be printing your files, you should be working in a color space called CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and K means black. Um, These are the colors that a printer uses to mix to create your printed file. And they should be a high enough resolution to not look grainy when printing them. If you're posting on web, it's fine to leave them in the RGB file format because that is what screens use. They mix those three colors in order to show you what you're looking at on the screen right now. You can leave that at a smaller, resolution because utilizing a higher resolution might just take up more space, as well as you're not going to be able to see the difference between a 72 resolution and a 300 resolution on your phone. If you're working with a designer, these are things that they'll be able to get you all the variety of versions of these files that you need. And on the right here, you can see a style guide. That is something that designers will make for you as well when it comes to your logo. Comes down into describing what goes into each part of the logo, such as the primary and secondary fonts, the color palettes, and some examples of different usages of the logo itself. Uh, that could be, very useful in the day to day as you're trying to see where your logo will be. And it's great to work with a designer to be able to get this for your logo. So once you've got all of that, you should possibly still get some second opinions. Make sure you're spell checking, make sure there's no accidental, iconography that wouldn't represent your business. Um, if you've been looking at it something for a long time, you can sometimes, stop being able to see what it really looks like. We call this design blindness. You've looked at it for too long. It's great to get a second set of eyes so you miss these things. So send your logo, send your, text to a couple of people that you trust to get the opinion on this. Again, a great thing a score mentor can help you with if you need someone to share it with, it's something a score mentor can help with. But at the same time, if you get too many, you might get overwhelmed and you might start making change you don't want to make. So, keep it simple. Maybe three or four of your close colleagues or friends to get feedback on it. Because your business is your business, not theirs. While it is still for your customers, don't want it to not speak to you because loving your logo is an important part. So, getting into it, should you trademark your logo? Probably not right now. I think, once you get established on the road and you're finally, happy with something you can use for a long time, that's when you might be able to start thinking about trademarking it. Part of what goes into trademarking it is that it might, some of the reasons you shouldn't, is it might be too technical, as we touch on in our trademarks workshop. It's a pretty technical process, and more than 50% of trademark filings are rejected when you first submit. This will be They'll give you the list of why they'll reject your trademark, and it's going to cost you every time you submit. So keep that in mind as well. You don't need to trademark it because there's things you as a business owner are going to need to spend money on first. I would highly recommend making sure you're really in a situated space before even thinking about it. And even then, due to fair use and common law trademark protections, as long as you've started to produce it and put it on things, your logo is already covered by local jurisdiction in this case. You're allowed to put the TM symbol next to it, even if you're not officially trademarked by the US government. We have a couple links here. I'll be sending out these slides as well after we wrap up today, and you can follow these links for some great further information on trademarking. We also have a few mentors such as Alan Shaver, who are really familiar with the trademark process and might be able to touch on it if you really think you're ready to trademark your logo. And what if you mess up? Like I said earlier, you're not going to have your perfect logo on the first try, and that's okay. As example here with Starbucks, over the, 50 years they've been a business. I can do math. I went to art school, not math school. Anyway, many great logos didn't start out great. That the mermaid in the Starbucks logo is looking pretty rough on the left there. Where they started to clean it up in the 80s, and then by 2011, they became ubiquitous, famous enough to just have their logo without saying Starbucks in the logo. And rebranding is real. If you start off with a logo and hit the ground running and decide, hey, this doesn't speak to me, let's freshen it up. That's okay. But don't go too far with the rebrand to become unrecognizable. You want your logo to still speak to you, but don't stray too far from what does speak to you. And lastly, keep your business in mind first. Even if you have a basic logo that only is, a simple icon with your business's name, that's fine. Running your business well comes first. A logo is almost, very important, but it's almost a luxury. So just keep it in mind. Make sure you're situated. Make sure you've got everything set and you know what your business means before you even start the process. Lastly, let's just retouch on a few things here. It's really important. Again, you take your time to give your logo the care and thought it deserves. If you're too busy to do it right, you're just going to have to do it again down the line, which again is okay. But um, it might cause confusion with your customers. So there's always some considerations. Do you know yourself? Have you done your market research? And have you thought about these things? If you can afford it, again, I would recommend hiring a pro unless you are that pro. You have, you know, graphic design under your tool belt, and you're using those right tools to get them in the right places. Keep your logo simple, effective. You want it to be legible everywhere. Keeping it simple is the best way to do that. By testing it out everywhere, you'll know you're ready to go. And before you do, I think some opinions from unbiased sources are great to make sure you're in the right place with it. And lastly, make sure you have the right files. That's once everything's said and done, you need to be having the right files to use it in every place you're using it. I have some great links here that talk to those as well. Again, I'll be sending out these slides for you to peruse. Then you can access these links. The logo design business of color there from 99 Designs is a great one. I even use all the time when working on logos to really think about what goes into it, what this business means, where they're going to come from. And again, these links will be available to you once I send this out to you. And we have some local suggestions, or at least these branding agency suggestions are local to us here in Maine. If you're elsewhere, if you're outside of Maine, your local score chapter might have some recommendations. Google's a great place to start, or LinkedIn as well, looking locally. Here in Portland, we're fans of Might and Main and Pulp and Wire. Pulp and Wire does some great work, but again, they're going to be very, considerably pricey. Freelance designers, such as people working on Upwork, Fiverr, and freelancing, are going to be more affordable. And Upwork and Fiverr are great places to find those. The crowdsourcing websites, again, I'm not as familiar with myself. However, it's a great resource to get your idea out there and possibly find something usable for a more affordable cost to have someone do it for you. Logo generators such as, I don't have it on here, but Canva, Logo Joy, Design Hill, and Squarespace's built-in logo generator are also a great starting point. But again, they will be a little bit, you might run into some redundancy because of the accessible files and accessible aspects of using a generator, that everyone that uses that generator has access to the same things you do. And if you can do it yourself, utilize the right software, and don't say just say no to your cousin Amy, who took one graphic design class 20 years ago and will do it on Microsoft Word, or again your best buddy who will just trying to help you out for a six pack or something. I get it from a credible source. Anyway, my name's Jasper Erickson. I thank everyone for attending. We have some time, plenty of time left. I kind of breezed through that. Sorry if I went a little quick there. If anyone has questions, now's a great time to address them. Feel free to put it in the chat, or you can come off of mute. And if you want to reach out to me, my email's there, and I will be the one sending the follow-up email that contains today's slides and a link to the recording in case you missed anything. And if you're not familiar with us here at SCORE, you can follow that bottom link to learn more. Well, thank you, Gail. I want to thank you for attending. I want to thank everyone for attending. And a quick plug too. Again, as I mentioned earlier, your value proposition is an important part of your logo, as well as running your business as a whole. And it's something a SCORE mentor can help you with. Just head to score.org where you signed up for this workshop and click on Find a Mentor. We're located throughout the country. So if you're here in Maine and you have a question that may not be able to be served by a mentor in Maine, we might have one elsewhere that could help you. Just as free as signing up for this workshop as well. Like I said, just head to score.org, click on Find a Mentor, and enter a little bit of business information about your business and what you're looking for help with. I do want to thank, I guess if there's no questions, I do want to thank today's sponsor one more time, the Maine Technology Institute, for helping make today's event possible. And in my message I'll be sending out, I'll be including a survey that we appreciate you filling out. We take your feedback seriously. And otherwise, I want to thank everyone for attending. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And sharing. Thanks, everyone.